Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm from the Economics Tutoring Center here at ASU, and today we're going to go over a problem on the input market. We'd like to remind you before starting this problem that teachers and different classes vary in notation and how they want you to complete the problem, so make sure to check with your professor before utilizing any specific method we teach here. Alright, so I've started off by drawing a graph of the input market. And the only difference between the graph of an input market versus the graph of an output market is that we're looking at how much of something we are inputting and how much we have to pay for it. So here we're looking at an input of laborers. So when someone goes to work for a company. So how many workers will work at what wage? So normally we would have the quantity of a good down here and the price you pay for a good, but now in an input market we have the number of workers or the quantity of workers and the wage. And so before we start, we need to go over what exactly supply and demand represent then in an input market. So normally demand represents the consumer in the output market and supply represents the producer. In an input market, our supply is the labor supply. And so it's whoever's supplying the labor. Now, you and I, we go and we work for companies. We would be considered the supply because we're supplying our labor. The demand is going to be big companies or small companies alike who are demanding labor. So they want workers to come in to help them make their products or to provide a service. All right? So it's important to remember that the supply here is us little guys and the demand is the companies. But that's just the easiest way to remember it since we're switching from an output market to an input market. Alright, so now what we're going to do right now is take a look at this graph and we're going to find out how changes in wage affect the number of workers and how many workers are hired. Alright, so we're going to start off by looking at market equilibrium, which is the same as we've been doing in the output market. Where does labor demand meet labor supply? Well, it's at that same intersection point. And so market equilibrium is at a wage of $6 and a quantity of 25. So at equilibrium, this market will pay its workers $6 and it will hire 25 workers. And that's just because that's where the lines meet. All right. So if you remember from the output market, when we change price, so normally price was on the y-axis, it causes a change in demand or a change in supply, but only in quantity. So a change in quantity supplied or a change in quantity demanded. You'll notice that this is different than a shift in demand or a shift in supply. So it works the same way in an input market. If we change the wage, we're only changing the quantity supplied or the quantity demanded. We're not shifting our entire supply line, nor are we shifting our entire demand line. So, if someone were to say, what happens when we increase the wage, which was currently at $6 in equilibrium, to $7? So what happens when we increase the wage? Well, at a wage of $7, our quantity demanded moves from 25 to 20. So our companies are demanding 20 workers. And our supply, our labor supply, increases to 30. And this makes sense because as workers, we're more willing to work at a higher wage. So when we move to $7, all of a sudden our labor supply is at a higher quantity. While the companies want to hire less because they are currently having to pay more per laborer than they were at equilibrium. So what does this mean? Well, if there's only a labor demand for 20 people, but there's a labor supply of 30. It means 30 people essentially are applying for 20 positions. And so how many people are hired? Well, there's only 20 positions, so only 20 people are hired. And so at a wage level of 7, we have hiring of 20. All right, now let's look at a wage that's below the equilibrium. So just like with a wage above, we're not going to shift these curves or lines, we're only going to move along them. So wherever we're at, if we decrease our wage to 5, which is below equilibrium because the equilibrium was at 5, our quantity demanded increases to 40, and our quantity supplied decreases to 10. And once again, that's just because that's where this wage, 5, meets the supply curve and where it meets the demand curve. So notice that at a lower wage, we have less people willing to work, and at a lower wage, we have more people who want to hire you, because all of a sudden people can get labor for a much cheaper price. So at a wage of $5, how many people are hired? Well, there's 10 people who are lining up or applying for the position, and there's 40 people who are being demanded for the position. So we have 40 positions available, but only 10 people applying. So how many people are hired? 10, because only 10 people want the job. So we would have a shortage of laborers right then, because this company wanted 40 people, but they only got 10. And so that's a good explanation of how input markets work. So they're slightly different than output markets, but if you pay attention to the similarities between price and wage and also quantity, you're going to find it a little bit easier to switch the mindset from output to input. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. If you need any more help, feel free to visit us in the Economics Tutoring Center on the 2nd floor of the BA building. But other than that, I hope this was helpful, and good luck.